Welcome to Between Two Coaches, a digital mentors podcast for visionary coaches, consultants, authors, and experts building purpose-driven businesses. I am your host, Norbert Orlewicz, co-founder of Digital Mentors. And in every episode, we dive into real, unfiltered conversations with thought leaders, mentors, and catalysts who are reshaping the way that we teach, lead, and grow. As always, this episode is sponsored by our Digital Mentors Compass workshop. If you are a coach or expert struggling to stand out in the marketplace and enroll more clients consistently, this workshop, we built it for you. It's a strategic experience that combines our expert mentorship with AI-assisted tools designed to simplify your message and sharpen your marketing strategy. You'll walk away with a personalized marketing roadmap built for your business, your goals, and your voice. You can grab your complimentary ticket to the next live session at compassworkshop.com. Again, that is compassworkshop.com. Today's guest, I am so excited to have this conversation. Today's guest is Eric Whitmoyer, founder and CEO of My Biz Coaches. Eric has helped grow two companies past $100 million a year, started or acquired more than 15 businesses of his own, and he's coached over 100 entrepreneurs through scaling their own companies. He brings more than 30 years of real-world experience in sales, leadership, operations, and finance, and he's the creator of the Six Core Competencies Framework featured in his upcoming book, The CEO's Playbook for Scale. He's also the host of the Biz Coach Show and is on a mission to help 1,000 entrepreneurs reach $1 million in annual revenue. Eric, welcome to the conversation.
Thank you so much, Norbert. I appreciate it. It's great to be here today.
Yeah, I'm really excited to just tap into your years of knowledge. I mean, I've been in the marketing space for 20 years myself,
Okay.
but to have somebody like you on here who's had the experience of actually acquiring businesses, starting and growing and scaling business to $100 million, my goodness, the experience that you must have, the stories that you must have. I'm excited to hear. All right, let's start here. I've got this starting question just to kind of kick us off here and see what your perspective is on what you think of this. Why do you think that coaching and mentorship is more important today than ever before in our changing landscape?
Yeah, it's a great question. I would say, you know what? So, right out of the gate, I would say first and foremost, being somebody who's consider myself a lifelong learner. Early on in my career, I did not have mentors, and so I did not know, was not familiar with how to go about finding a mentor. And so my mentors were the books that I read. And I was not an avid book reader. As a matter of fact, I didn't finish a book until I was 25 years old. That while I was in college, and it wasn't even a college book that I was reading. It was a personal development book. But I say all of that to say that when I realized the value I would get from spending time with people who had been there and done that, so to speak, and done the things that I wanted to do, I was like, man, this is a game changer. I could cut years off of the learning curve if I can just tap into the genius of these other individuals. So fast forward, going to your question, and fast forwarding today, there is no lack of information. I remember in college, I'll go back to this. I didn't go to college till I was 24. And when I was in college, I went to Northern Arizona University. And I remember we were there, and there was a techie guy across the hall from me in the dorm. And he had cabinets of files. I'm trying to remember the type. It wasn't the floppy disk. It was another type of disk. But he had literally like boxes and boxes of information that he saved on these files. And what my point is that was 25 years ago, right? Fast forward to today, we can have anything that we need in a moment's notice just by going onto the internet. Complete game changer, right? From that time till today, and in regards to how you can access information and data. And I think that the key isn't so much, and has never really been, or at least hasn't been in the last 10 or 15 years, it's not the access to information, it's what to do with that information and how to use it intelligently, how to discern what is valuable and what is not, what is accurate and what is not, what's accurate to your circumstance and your situation and what is not. And that's where the value of somebody who's been there, done that, the experience of that mentor can bring to the table.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's the thing. When I see somebody like yourself, I'm just thinking as an avid learner myself, I'm like, what can I learn from this guy? How can I ask him the right question to get that little nugget that I need right now at this journey in my business? Let's back up a little bit because you've had an incredible journey. You've been a sales leader, you've been an executive, you founded multiple businesses, you've scaled companies to $100 million, and now you're a coach. Why? What made you decide to step into coaching? And
Uh,
when did you realize that your corporate and entrepreneurial experience could directly help other business owners?
yeah, yeah. So interesting. Actually, so there's a couple of evolutions there. Um, let me. Where do I want to start with this one? So let me start with why I left. Oh, I didn't really leave corporate, and I wasn't really in corporate per se. I was with a. So I spent 24 years in the wireless industry as a dealer for the carriers. So we represented the carriers and the wireless carriers, and we were wireless retailers. So we sold the different carriers. So I've started when it was paging, evolved into what it became today, what it is today, the wireless technology that's selling cell phones. I represented every carrier that existed during that period of time. And some that nobody has ever even heard of before because they're already gone. But I say that to say that I spent 24 years in that space, developed a lot of my skills and leadership and things like that. But what evolved over that period of time was that I realized as I got towards the end of my career, probably the last 10 years, I realized that I wasn't really passionate about sales so much as I was about the personal growth that I was providing to the individuals that worked for me. And so
Mm,
where I really got my jack, and I have to give credit to my old my chief operating officer that I worked for at the last company that we helped grow and scale. Um, he helped me realize that when I got to the executive level, driving sales results wasn't meaningful to me anymore. It is in the sense of I'm getting credit, I'm getting to pat myself on the back for getting great sales numbers. It was about building the teams that we built and the time and energy that I spent in investing in those individuals. That's where my high came from. And so certainly the last 5 or 6 years, I was very clear that's what I wanted to be doing. So knowing that the end of retail was coming, just look in mid 2010s, looking at online sales versus in-store sales at Christmas time and stuff like that. We'd look at the numbers, and every year it kept getting closer, and finally it eclipsed retail sales. And we're like, oh, this industry is going to change dramatically in the next 5 years. So I started building my coaching business on the side, started
yeah.
developing my brand, started identifying who I was, what I wanted to focus on, all that kind of stuff. I was working with an individual, helped me with branding. And she said to me, she goes, and say, Eric, I really want to help you with this. I'm just curious, why do you want to be a coach? And I was getting certified as a life coach. Actually, I was certified as a life coach by Jack Canfield, who was the author of Chicken Soup for the Soul. He also did a book called The Success Principles. So I was certified in the Success Principles. And she said, "Why do you want to be a life coach?" And I had to think about it. I'm like, because I really like the transformation, and I explained it to her, everything I just said. And she says, "I hear you, but you just have a way of taking really complex concepts and breaking them down for the average person to understand." She goes, "And you're so analytical and you understand the numbers." She goes, "I really think you'd be better as a business coach." So it did take me 4 years to hear that message. That was in 2015. It was
Oh,
2019 when I launched My Biz Coach. It wasn't even My Biz Coaches originally, but that's what it evolved into. But so that was, and so when we sold the last business in 2017, what happened was non-compete. I can't be in the industry. The company that acquired us did offer me initially a job to stay with them, and then I identified that that was not going to be a right fit. They identified it wasn't going to be a right fit, and I had become at that point almost 50 years old. I'm pretty much unemployable, so made too much money. Was a little bit more seasoned, and certainly a bit more um, opinionated than they wanted for their new organization, for the organization that they acquired. So better to get rid of the legacy leadership that was in place, and so I moved on, but then they paid me to sit on the sidelines, and we had a nice cash out when we sold the business. So I was kind of like, okay, what do I want to do now? And that's when I'm going to really lean into the coaching piece.
oh
So
man, that
that's how
that
I got here in a sense. Now, but there's one other piece I got to share because you asked me, why coaching, and what was interesting is in the beginning when I did this, it was not the mission it is today. When I got into this, it was, hey, I'm 50-ish. I'm gonna, the next 10 years, maybe I'm just gonna play this out. I'll do some consulting, make some money. I'll teach people how to sell, whatever. I don't know. I'll work with these companies and do that. And after about a year, so first of all, 5 months into my first contract, COVID hits. Uh,
Mm.
I got to do a massive pivot and readjust my business model and strategy and how I was going to run the business. 3 weeks into COVID, the contractor comes to me and says, this is after I guaranteed a 20% lift in sales, and we're up 28%, and then COVID hits, right? And so I'm like, oh, poop. Now what am I going to do? And so they come to me 3 weeks into COVID and they're like, hey, we don't know what to do. And I'm like, what do you mean you don't know what to do? And they're like, well, we're considered essential. We're not sure we should stay open. And this is a business that's been around for 45 years. It's a family-owned business. They're doing okay, right? They brought me in to increase sales, but so anyway, they said to me, so what do you think we should do? And I'm thinking, in my mind, I'm thinking to myself, I was here to generate sales. I wasn't thinking like an owner, right? But something came to me because when I was in school for accounting, one of the things that I remembered a professor saying is that most small businesses are 60 days from insolvency. So 60 days without revenue and they're out of business. They're not out of business, they're bankrupt.
Yeah.
Right? Because they probably depleted everything that they had to be able to get to that point.
Yeah.
And so it resonated with me. And in that moment, it was like I felt like limitless. I was scanning through my brain looking for something to answer that question. And that number hit me. I shared that with them and they're like, oh. And so I said, so they said, what do you think we should do? And I said, well, if I'm you, you're capitalized. You're in a position where you have the resources. You could ride the wave out. They're talking about the government bringing in some support and stuff like that. So take advantage of this PPP thing and whatever else they're talking about. I said, if I'm you, I take advantage of that. I batten down the hatches and I ride this out because my bet is 20 to 40% of your competition is not here in 3 to 6 months, depending on how long this lasts. Because at that point, 3 weeks in, nobody knows what's going on, right? Nobody has a clue. And so they thought about it over the weekend. They came back on Monday and said, okay, we want you to be our fractional VP of sales and lead us through this. But we're gonna follow your lead. 3 months, 4 months into that, we started getting letter after letter from the vendors and the other companies that they bought from and sold to. And they're like, yeah, we're going out of business. And so they just started capturing up the lion's share of the business. And so, calculated decision. I was like, ooh, score one for me. I know what I'm talking about. But what was interesting was through that process over the next 6 months, the vast majority of my business began to grow just because I was helping people identify how to capture PPP, the EIDL loan, and the tax credits that were available. Nobody had a clue. Now, I went to school for accounting, so that 941 and those documents that you need, all that kind of stuff, it wasn't fresh in my mind, but I knew what was necessary. And so I went and showed these people how to do it. And I just got introduced to another company. Hey, they need help. Hey, they need help. Because in the beginning, the banks weren't helping the small business owner.
Yep.
They were only going to the big companies, right? And so all of a sudden, I became this knight in shining armor to a number of people that were like, that was really helpful. Thank you so much. You saved our business, blah, blah, blah. And all of a sudden, that mission started showing up. Because I started realizing how many small business owners don't know what they don't know.
Would you say then that COVID and that experience, would you say that that was really a catalyst that kind of helped your business to really explode and really expand market share?
It helped two things. It helped me clearly identify what I could bring to the table because up until that point, I thought I was just a sales guy. I did not realize how much my 30 years of experience would really be beneficial to these small business owners. And
Oh,
then is when I realized I'm like, because then it was like, oh, well, so-and-so needs this and so-and-so needs that. I couldn't keep up with it. So I recruited in my buddy Joe and a couple other guys and coaches. Then I'm like, I'll show you what I'm doing. I'll show you how to do this. And that's what really and that's where I got the idea for the brand, because then I paid attention. Everybody's on Zoom. Everybody's doing everything online. I don't need to go into the facility. I can actually just coach and give direction and guidance over the Zoom. And I'm like, I ran a 6-state territory over the phone, basically, right? So I'm like, I can totally do this online. I never really thought about it from that perspective. It completely changed the way that I can make an impact in with business owners. And so that's how that all evolved. So kind of long story, I apologize, but there was a lot that went into that to get me where I am today.
Yeah, I mean, I could literally just stay on that story for the next hour and just ask you questions about the things that you just said there, and I would
Right.
really encourage the coaches listening just to rewind and listen back to his story and pay attention to the steps and what happened, because there's a lot of things that I saw there. First of all, and this is something that I see with a lot of new coaches, is that their expectations and their understandings of what it takes to market and grow a business is completely detached from reality.
Yes.
They get a certification. Yay, I'm certified as a coach. And now let's bring on the clients. And see, and you're laughing because you understand marketing and business, but that is the typical mindset of a coach
Right.
entering into this world. And I find like my first few months working with our clients, with our coaches, is just to get them to step back and understand that this is a long-term process. They literally come to us and they're like, okay, I got my certification. I'm ready to go. I got 90 days. I need to get some clients and make 10K a month.
That is so accurate.
Isn't it? And I'm like,
Yeah.
whoa, hold on a second. You don't even know who your ideal client is. You
Right.
don't even know what you're selling, except that you're a coach. You don't
Right.
know where you're going to find these people, what problems they have, what your marketing message is, how you're packaging your offer. And you want to be making 10K a month in the next 3 months?
Yeah.
So, can you just share kind of the reality? You got 30 years of business, 15 companies that you've personally acquired, companies that you've scaled, business owners that you've worked with in so many different ways. Can you please share some insight, some wisdom, and like help coaches to shift their thinking and truly understand what it's going to take to build a successful coaching business in today's market? Yay, they got their certification. Now
Yeah.
what?
Yeah. Yeah. So my first year, so that first client that I referenced, I did it on a prove it deal. So I took a very small stipend monthly and basically said, okay, when I increase sales by 20%, you're doing 1 million a year. When I increase sales by 20%, $200,000 lift, I want 15% of that on the back end in 6 months. So I was already in business for 2 months at that point, and I'm waiting 8 months before my payday.
Reality of entrepreneurship, eh?
I got nothing to go on except my good name and a little bit of ideas of what I did and what I might be able to do for you. Because at that point, I had no perspective on what I could actually do for that client other than increase sales. That was what my confidence level was. So to your point, absolutely. And I will tell you this: between client A through COVID and picking up the people that I did through the referrals, it was all referrals in the beginning. And it was because the referrals were accelerated. To your point, my growth was due to the referrals because of COVID. Had it
Because
not,
because because you were solving a very specific problem
very specific
and you were
problem.
the expert in it.
Yep, yep. I could at least come in and confidently say, "This is what I can do to help you."
Yeah.
Yeah. And so that not happened, the growth would not have been there. And I will also say when that petered out and was not as necessary, what I struggled with was I had sold for at that point probably 30 years of my life at that point. I sold services, products. I sold real estate insurance or real estate investment services, and I got my license in insurance, life insurance, but I'd never sold myself.
Ah,
Yeah. Yeah, that took me a good 18 months of reiterating, what does this look like? Who am I? What am I selling? What am I offering? I mean, to this day, my biz coaches evolved because I could not identify one specific thing that I could do for a business owner because I was like, I don't know, I can do anything, right? And it's like, and I didn't mean that from an arrogant perspective. I meant it in the sense that, well, I've done this and I've done that and I've done this
yeah.
and I can help you here and I can help you there, and I didn't want to leave everybody out, but like you mentioned, I had not clearly identified what my solution is to the market. So I struggled immensely. And then when I went to selling on, like getting online and putting my message out there, that's when it became very clear to me the disconnect, the reason that people aren't resonating with me is because I don't clearly identify what I do for them in their business. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh man, what a journey. What a journey this is, eh? What a journey. All right, let's get back to some of the specific things that you created and you work on. So you've got these 6 core competencies framework. I'm really interested in that. You use this with your client. I don't know all of them, so maybe you'll need to describe a little bit about them. But which of these competencies do you believe new or early stage coaches kind of ignore the most?
Mm.
Where do they need to focus?
Okay, so let me before I answer that, let me explain it first because I think that'll
Yeah.
help you identify. Because my answer is it depends. But so, and here's why.
My clients love when that's my answer, right? Oh, it depends. Not what they were hoping for.
Well, it's funny because I read an article on LinkedIn the other day, and somebody said, if you hear a coach say it depends, run for the hills. I'm like, I hear what you're saying, but let me explain.
Because it depends.
Exactly. So here's how so let me where the 6 core competencies came from. I was doing research for the book 2 years ago when I kind of started the idea of it. I'm like, okay, I'm not sure exactly what I'm going to write about, but I feel like I need an anchor book to really kind of go into this. It took longer than I expected, only because every time I turned over the stone and uncovered more research, there was more. I was like, oh, I was like blown away by the information. So a
Mm.
couple of quick stats to really, and you may have heard many of these, but I just want to restate them. First, it started with the rationale that only 6 to 8% of businesses ever reach $1 million in top line revenue. So I'm like, okay, well, just for perspective, how many businesses are there? Well, there's 34.4 million businesses in the United States. That's roughly 10% of the population of the United States. It's about 330 million or something like that, 340 million. So it's roughly 10%. So 10% of the people out there are business owners, and only 6 to 8% of them ever reach $1 million in top line revenue. So then people are like, well, why is $1 million so important, Eric? Okay, well, this is where my finance comes into play. Okay, $1 million at a 15, let's say a 20% net margin, that means you're taking home $200 million or $200,000 on $1 million. That's a good living. I've made a lot more than that. I've made less than that. I can tell you the 200 is a decent living. It's not great, but it's a good living, right? As a business owner, that's a good, for the amount of time and energy you're gonna put in, it's not a bad living. Anything less than that, right? Anything. I mean, 150,000 is not bad. $100,000, man, I don't know. You're not covering a family at $100,000 anymore these days, and anything less than $100,000. So then I find out IRS statistics 2023. Average small business owner, no, 2024, average small business owner, $68,000. And guess how many hours they work? 55 hours a week.
Yeah.
And I'm like, man. And so then I get into the statistics on, and this is data for the book, right? The research for the book. So then I get into, okay, what are, oh, by the way, the 6 to 8% of a million, that number has been consistent for about 30 years as
Oh,
far as
wow.
the percentage of people that reach $1 million. So regardless of how much, it should be a lot easier to hit $1 million today than 30 years ago, right? But the number's still less than 10%, right? That's crazy.
That is crazy.
So then I started digging into failure rates, right? And you probably heard similar numbers. About 20, I'm going to round because it's 2 or 3% one way or the other. 25 in a year, 50% within 5 years, 75% within in 10 years. So a quarter out of the gate in year one don't even make it. 50% don't make it 5 years, 75% don't make it 10 years. So then I was like, wow, that's compelling. And then I went back and looked at the data, and that goes back 46 years. The SBA statistics, how far back I could go. And so 46 years, those numbers haven't changed dramatically, more than 3 or 4% either way in all that. So either it's lazy reporting on the SBA's part, or or we're just doing something, wrong consistently as business owners.
Mm.
So I started digging into that more and more, and I'm thinking, okay, well, certainly if I run the business for so many years and I'm really successful and I have the business for 20 or 30 years, at least I get to sell it and get the windfall, right? No, 80% of businesses that reach that decide to list. So that doesn't necessarily mean they made it 10 years, but any of all the businesses that sell, approximately 80% List to sell, never sell. They shut down. Profitable or losing money, they just shut down. And I'm like, that's just ridiculous. I don't believe that at all. So ironically, I was talking to one of my coaches, Jim Wilkerson, and Jim was actually, he was very passionate about becoming a broker, a business broker. And so he said to me, hey, I was at this meeting of business brokers, and this guy spoke. His name's Walt Lipke. Walt was the president of the Arizona Business Brokers Association for like 12, I think it was like 12 years. And so, 12 years. And he's been doing it for 38 years. So he's like, you should call him, reach out to him and talk to him, because he said he'd be willing to help anybody. And so we were only maybe 2.5 years into my biz coach at that point. So I call up Walt and I say, hey, I'd love to have a conversation, Walt. I want to have you on my podcast. So Paul's like, yeah, Walt's like, that'd be great. I'd love to, talk more about it. I'm like, so I got a question for you. Just question number one. 80% of businesses never sell. Is that accurate? He's like, look, I don't know. I expected him to like squash the whole thing. He's like, I don't know if it's 70%, but it's 90%, or it's 90%, but it's in that realm. And I'm like, how is that even possible? So he breaks down 4 things for me. Then he says, these are the 4 primary reasons why most businesses don't sell. First one is bad financial data. By far and away, one of the most significant reasons is bad financial data. Second one is no leadership transition. The business owner is the business. The third one was no documented, not policies and procedures, but operational structures and processes and things like that. And then the fourth one was no documented, you appreciate this, marketing and sales strategy. Mm-hmm. So something like now I have assets that I can actually employ and use. None of that's in place. I'm just buying your broken system. And so one of the things he corroborated for me, which has been my experience, when you buy a business, you're buying somebody else's problems. You just have to identify that you're comfortable with those problems and you can fix those problems. Because they have problems, otherwise they wouldn't be selling, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So those 4 kind of lean into the 6 core competencies, and they are leadership and vision. In my eyes, everything starts with leadership and vision. Yeah. Second one is financial acumen and the data that supports your finance, all your numbers around that. The third one is sales and marketing. The fourth one is operational excellence. The fifth one is people management. And then the sixth one is your customers, taking care of your customers, customer service. And so, and what I tell people is that inherently, any one of us, when we start a business, we only have, here's the kicker, 1 to 3 of those skill sets really refined to any level.
If we're lucky.
If we're lucky, right. Yeah, exactly. So the problem is that you only have a couple of those that you're working with, but you have to solve for all 6 to sustain over an extended period of time. Now, there is a bit of a caveat depending on where you are in the scale phase. Some are certainly more important than others at different phases, which is the question you were actually asking. But the point is that if you have to have all 6 and you only have a couple, what are the ways to solve for that? Well, the first way is to hire for it. But if you don't know how to do it and you hire somebody and you don't know how to hold them accountable because you don't know what they're supposed to be doing, right? You're laughing. You know exactly where I'm going.
Had that experience, yes.
Exactly. The second one is to partner for it, which has its own hair, right? It could be good, it could be bad. But even then, you don't generally find somebody who's a perfect match for the things that you have and the things that, right? And then the third way to do it is outsource it. And in my eyes today, with all the specialties, focus, and everything like that, it's about bringing in and outsourcing that. And then ideally, the right outsource solution is somebody who helps you transition from where you are to, okay, now you know what you need for that individual and you can hire correctly for that solution. Or maybe it's the person that you brought in as the extension. But so anyway, that's kind of how I envision that. And that's that the way I see that coming together. Now, as I mentioned, there's different scales, right? There's 0 to 100,000, there's 100 to 250, 250 to 500. Each of them has their own unique circumstances, and that brings with it the needs that you have in those 6 core competencies and how important any one of those 6 are at that time. That's where the depends comes from.
Yeah. Man, that gives a really great perspective just into the business realm, because I think this is the thing, the challenge with so many entrepreneurs. I'm thinking about the book by Michael Gerber, The E-Myth. I talk about it all the time, right? It's the business owner who's the technician. They have an expertise, and so they're like, why am I getting paid, half of what this company is making? I could
Yes.
do this myself. I'll start my own business. But little did they know that there's 6 core competencies that they need to master. It's the same thing with coaches, I find,
Mm,
is we have certain expertise, whether in human resources or in sales, like for you, or we're life coaches. They start as life coaches or relationship coaches, and so you develop this expertise. That's awesome. But where are those 6 business competencies coming in? And
right.
so, there's a lot of people talk about solopreneurship, right?
Hmm.
And when you think about coaches starting their own business, they kind of get into that category of solopreneurs. I hate that word, solopreneur. I think
Mm,
it is the absolute worst word ever created for entrepreneurs because it makes you think that you can do this by
all by
yourself,
yourself. Oh, that's so good. Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Yes.
So what coaches getting started in this business of coaching, because you're not just a coach doing coaching, you actually have to run a business. Where do you feel that they need to really focus, and what things do they need to outsource, and when do they even need to think about those things?
Yeah. So I wish I could give you the perfect answer because I didn't make all the right decisions in that process, right? I held on too long before I brought on a VA. Bringing on a VA was a massive uplift in my ability to do the things I needed to do, and gave me the bandwidth that I could really move the needle on things like the book, right, and doing the things to brand and my branding from a marketing perspective, my branding, it was like my Facebook looked one way, and my Instagram looked another way, and my LinkedIn looked another way, right? But my VA came in, and she just like, well, I'm like, I need them to be consistent, and so she started cleaning them up, and all of a sudden, the consistency was better. My content, as much time as I spent on building content and putting it out there, she'd clean that up. So anyway, I think that the answer, the right answer is you have to consistently go back to what you mentioned, the e-birth, and more specifically working on your business versus in your business. And when you're working on your business, step back and reflect on it and say, okay, where am I missing? Right. And if you pay attention to your clients, and you have good clients, generally they're going to let you know. Maybe they don't say the words outright, but I mean, if you're self-reflective, right? If you're a good coach, you got to be you got to be self-aware. If you're a good coach, right? And if
Yeah.
you're self-aware enough, hey, I delivered this to the client, but it was last minute. It was because I had procrastinated because I had this event that I was doing and I was preparing for that, and I'm spread too thin across all these different things. How can I manage that better? And in my opinion, it starts with, it's if it's Upwork or Fiverr or somebody to do some of those things that you're wasting time on, right? What my favorite exercise when I do time management is to do the what's your time worth exercise,
Oh, God, I love that.
right?
Yes.
Yeah. And so as soon as I see that, hey, my time's worth 150, 250, $500 an hour, whatever I think my time is worth, and I'm doing a $25 an hour task, I'm like, okay, I see where the disconnect is. And in the beginning, I get it. We don't always have the funding that we need to be able to go out. And that's probably one of the biggest things of the solopreneur, right? I had all these resources when I worked for the company. Now I'm on my own. I don't have the assistant. I don't have the people for this. I can't delegate. I got to try and figure my own way out through this. But as you scale, right, then you start figuring out how to. But here's where we rely on technology in that point, right?
Yes.
Leverage technology and use technology, but you're going to have to become a student and learn the things that you don't know and don't understand about the technology. But I think that's my first recommendation is to determine how you can leverage technology, automations, and things like that first and foremost. Then look at the low cost solutions like Upwork and Fiverr and those types of solutions that are going to fix some of those pieces, especially the stuff you're not good at. I hear people all the time, oh, I spent 5 hours building this landing page. I'm like, I don't know if you know this, but with the right tools, I can build a landing page in about 25, 30 minutes tops.
Yeah.
Right. So I'm like, okay, I don't want to crush your bubble here, but you're spending too much time on the wrong things because you just don't know. You don't know what you don't know, which is like the most popular phrase I hear of anybody that works with business owners. So, and then it evolves from that. Then it's VAs, and then it's okay. Now let's start talking about actual employees. But to your point, none of it's done all 100% alone.
Let's be blunt here. I'm just thinking about the typical coach, um, leaving corporate America, getting inspired. I want to be a life coach. I want to be a business coach. I want to start this coaching business. I see a lot of coaches making good money. I think that I can do this. What Let's give them a reality check right now. Okay. Can they do this on their own without any mentorship, guidance, or training when it comes to when you think about the 6 core competencies? Like
No.
I'm a theater school dropout, just so you know. Okay. So I have no business degrees, no marketing degrees, but I paid for the school through the school of hard knocks. I
Right.
paid through experience. I paid through 6 years of failure, and I've spent tens of thousands of dollars on courses, workshops, coaches, and mentors. So I paid for my education. I always say there's no free lunch. You're going to pay for your education one way or another. I want to be a life coach. I'm transitioning from corporate. Where do I need the help here?
Yeah. Well, here's my 2 cents. This might be blasphemous, but don't go buy a franchise.
I want to hear about this.
I don't, I just, when I did my research on what the coaching franchises offer, um, and I'm not going to name any names because I don't think it's appropriate, but that you do your own due diligence, 50, 75, $100,000 for a coaching franchise. Put that into your education, your marketing strategy, your resources, and hire somebody for $100,000. I mean, you'll get way further, way faster, right?
Yeah.
So that's one. If you're and that's where, I mean, that's the target audience for those groups is the guy or gal who's worked 25, 30 years in a particular skill set and they're really good at it, right? Leadership development, communications, whatever things that you were doing, you were an operations specialist, whatever. Those are skill sets are really useful for coaches. However, if that's your thing, right, you're going to get a lot faster by using that money and putting it into your business because yes, you could do it on your own, Norbert, but you're going to do it like I mean, it took me, I would say, with the exception of that period of time where I was able to really accelerate through COVID, it took me 3 years to really get a handle on this.
Yeah.
So that's a lot of time. I wasted a lot of time, and quite honestly, I'm super frustrated because in retrospect, when I look back on it, I knew better, but I was like, I don't know, I'm not sure, right? And because I was still not certain where I was going. If I had the mentorship of somebody who really understood marketing for coaching, very specifically marketing for coaching and then sales for coaching, helping me identify how to sell my services, and then somebody who knows how to help me identify who's my avatar and who
Yeah.
to go after, and then build a program for that specifically. It would have saved me a good couple of years easy. And I'm going to say 150,000 maybe, with just the time spent, the money spent on things that didn't come together.
Okay, so if you guys just rewind about 30 seconds, 60 seconds, Eric just laid out your priorities right there because he identified ideal client, offer, and messaging right there in his
Yep.
answer. Those are those are the first things. You've got to get clarity on those things before you get out there marketing or hiring marketing agencies or my
Oh,
God, buying a coaching franchise. I've never even looked at that because I
uh,
that's insane. That's crazy.
yeah, I did it while I was still full-time employed. So I'm looking
Yeah.
at it going, okay, well, if I take a little bit of money I got set aside, I could put that into that franchise and it would give me, but here's what it didn't do. And so here's ironic. Okay, here's where my 30 years of wireless experience, something really kicked in for me. The one thing that I learned the hard way was branding. I worked for a number of different companies that I alluded to earlier. And one of the companies I represented was a smaller regional carrier for a period of time. And we averaged, in a retail store environment, we averaged about 50 door swings a day. Now, we didn't really quantify how, if 6 people walk through the door versus one person walked through the door. We just said, hey, there's 50 door swings. Divide that by the number of boxes we sold that day, units, phones, and that was our conversion rate, right? And that was just draw the line in the sand. This is what it is. Now we got something to measure, right? And so when we started doing that, our closing rate was 3%. By the time we sold the company, our closing rate was 15%. So, but none of that would have happened if we didn't know our members, we didn't know our metrics, right? We didn't know our KPIs, right? But the point that I was trying to illustrate was when we were that first brand, 50 door swings a day. When we switched to T-Mobile, which by the way, at that time, 2011, 2009, that brand was really in a bad place. It wasn't until 2011, 2012 that the brand got better. At that point in time, T-Mobile was way behind on the technology development as far as the infrastructure build out for the carriers. And so what was happening is you'd have coverage in the cities, but the in-building penetration was terrible. If you left the core city, the coverage was terrible. If you lived on the fringe area, you didn't even have coverage in your home probably. And so, but what was different was I went from 50 door swings a day to 150 door swings a day. That 3% closing ratio now is a meaningful income. And even though it's only breaking even, at least I'm breaking even. I'm not bleeding out. So let me apply that to coaching. If you talk to one person a day for 30 days and your closing ratio is 3%, yeah, you're not going to fare so well. You've got to figure out who you're talking to, how many people you're talking to, and then track that data and identify, okay, well, I'm talking to 3 people a day, 5 days a week. That's 15 people. That's 60 people a month. And even at a 10% closing ratio, I could have 6 clients, right? And so now I know the math to figure out how to be successful in coaching, right? Assuming that the numbers, everything line up.
Absolutely. Basic math. And again, a lot of coaches just don't know what they don't know. They don't understand the sales process. They don't understand measuring metrics. They don't understand KPIs. They don't even know what their KPIs are. You got to decide on those first, right?
Exactly.
These are these business lessons that we have to learn through the process. And you're either going to have a mentor or coach teach you that, or at some point in your journey, you're going to have to figure it out. All right,
Right.
listen, I'm looking at the time here. I could literally keep you for the next 3 hours and drill into all the experiences that you have. But let's talk about your book, because this is the new thing. You've been working on it. You've been working on it for a couple of years. And again, another message there, right? You want to write a book. 2 years in the making. This book is coming. This is the whole short-term needs, long-term vision. Right?
Yeah.
We've got to look long term with our business. 3-5 years down the road is what we're planning for, right? You're not just going to write and publish a book and all of a sudden make sales. It's going to be a process of evolution. But let's talk about this book. What's the motivation behind it? Why are you writing it? And who is it for? And how is it going to help them?
Yeah. So it's specifically for business owners. It helps them identify more specifically of those 6 core competencies where you are lacking and how that's going to impact your business, right? Where it'll show up in your business and help you identify. And then it also goes back and it identifies where you're at in the scale phase. So if you're smaller, it's not going to be that big of a deal that you don't have a great handle on the finances as long as you got money in the bank, right? But once you get past 100,000, you push to 250. Now you're going to have to take a little bit more attention to that. Maybe you get a bookkeeper if that's not your skill set, but right, identifying those things as the business evolves. So it's for the business owner. It's to help them identify those 6 core competencies first and foremost, that how important they are, the role that they play in a successful business, and then whether or not you're able to sustain over an extended period of time to have an exit, which theoretically most people that start a bit. Well, let me start with this. It all starts with the first one, which is leadership and vision. It's your ability as the leader to identify where the company's going, to put the flag out there 500 yards away and say, this is where we're going, go in this direction. Without that, what I've identified, I've had 128 clients in 6 years and 3 months. And in that time, I could tell you that 75%, maybe 60%, probably didn't have a really good idea what their intentions were for their business. They just got into business, started making money, and said, oh, I don't know what I'm going to do, but I'm not sure what I'm doing right now. They didn't get into it to sell necessarily, or at least they didn't think about that. They didn't really have any plan. And then they wondered why they're stuck at whatever point they're stuck at and can't move. It's because you don't know where you're going. You don't know what you should be doing to get where you want to go. So that's a lot of what the book helps discover. It shares a lot of the data that I referenced earlier, and then some, helping identify why these things aren't inherently wrong. And it's also, it's not a what's the word I want to use? This is, you're the only one having this problem. I want everybody to realize everybody's having these problems,
Right.
right? They're not alone. And most importantly, you're not alone, and there are resources out there, and there are quality people who can help you move your business along. So whether you're a coach or whether you're a landscaper or a doctor or a dentist, your genius is in the skill set and the profession that you provide. It's not in the, how do I manage this team of people, or how do I set up a marketing campaign, or that's where you have to employ the genius of those others and then bring them in. Because to your point, there's no such thing as a solopreneur. I like that. I'm actually going to take that and run with that. That's great.
Yes, yes, please. Let's get rid of that word completely, honestly. Eric, this has been fantastic. Awesome to connect with you. Awesome to meet you. I look forward to following your content on LinkedIn. This has been a really great conversation, and I look forward to checking out your book as well. As a business owner who knows my incompetencies very well, I absolutely am going to pick up your book and have a good read through it, and maybe bring you on as I have more questions through that process later on in the future. But thank you so much for coming on here and sharing your insights and experiences. We're going to have all of your links down below to your website, your social media. Just really quickly, the website where people can connect with you and grab that book as well once it's out in public.
mybizcoaches.com.
mybizcoaches.com. Okay, awesome, fantastic. We're going to leave that in the show notes, in the descriptions. Please connect with Eric, check him out, and check out his book. And if you're a coach, consultant, trainer, or expert, and you're looking for clarity in your marketing and client acquisition strategy, come join us for that complimentary workshop that we do all the time. You can get your complimentary ticket at compassworkshop.com. And as always, if you enjoyed this episode, please share it out with your network. We need more people to understand that there's no such thing as a solopreneur, to reach out to the help, to the mentors and guides that are out there and willing to help you through this process. This is a challenging journey. It's not necessarily complicated, but it's definitely not easy, and you're going to need support along the way. Eric, thank you so much again. This has been an incredible conversation between two coaches.